Welcome to Pride and Promotion, the podcast that celebrates every color under the rainbow and dives deep into the heart of marketing, exploring how innovation and diversity can drive business growth. I'm Joe Federico, your host on this exciting journey and owner of J. Federico Marketing. Every week, we reveal the magic behind effective brand storytelling and examine how inclusive marketing can transform your business landscape. So get ready, because this episode is packed with insights you won't want to miss. Hey folks, how are you? I am Joe Federico of J. Federico Marketing, and you know this, that's why you're here, the Pride and Promotion podcast. And tonight I have a very special guest whom I, have met officially tonight, but we have been speaking for a while through social media. It is Bruce Hart, and he's an actor and producer and mastermind behind Fathers of the Bride, the film. So Bruce, thanks for joining Pride and Promotion. How are you tonight?
Well, okay. I know the country just went through a bit of a shock. It's, I'm still processing, as a lot of us like to say, but I'm very excited to be here today. Thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure. Yeah, and we have so much to talk about. Gosh knows which twists and turns this episode will take, and that's why we're here for it, as well as many other things happening in our country and our lives. But this is meant to be a form of escapism, to allow you to have a platform to speak openly and honestly, and then we're just going to have some fun. How's that sound?
It sounds great, and I appreciate it.
So in the green room, we were talking about the impact, or what kind of impact our content will or will not have on, our social platforms, but on the audiences. And I want to speak with you about that. So I feel that, and I started this conversation a few moments ago, and I wanted to say, I had a conversation with a business owner in my town that was also affiliated with the political party in which I associate with, right? And we were talking about business, but social media, as well as impact of content, on our audiences and building a brand and what that means for the future. So what you said was interesting. And I want to jump into kind of going a little bit backwards, and we'll work our way onto introducing the film, so forth and so on. But why do you feel the way you feel about your content and who it reaches and what kind of impact it will have on your audiences? So let's dive right in.
Okay, well, let's first just start with films. I've been in a whole lot of them, not all LGBTQ plus films, but the majority, and I've produced 3 of those.
Sure.
I have always been under the thought that anything I produce needs to entertain first. Mm-hmm. And I love making entertainment that has gay characters, queer characters, things like that. So even if there isn't a huge message there, about, say, gay bashing or something along those lines, it's still political, whether I want it to be or not, because I am front and center having members of the queer community in my films.
Sure.
So in a sense, I am never going to be able to say I'm not political. And I'm, an out and proud gay actor as well as mm-hmm. producer, etc. However, I don't view myself as an influencer. There are many that do it very well, much better than I do. So when I post or when I join in on online conversations, I want to be absolutely careful that what I'm saying is not only couched in terms of what I believe in.
Sure.
But that I am not crossing over and being negative, angry, or hostile. It's really important to me, and people always say your brand is nice, Bruce, and I guess it is. Yeah. I guess I'm nice, but I'm not always nice.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I have a management team. They have asked me not to go. In 2016, I was posting every single day. It was all political. And I noticed that I was starting to lose the thread with my followers about what I really wanted to talk about, which is gay people, queer people in the community and how they're represented in film. And I was losing it to warning people, if you vote for this initiative or that initiative. And I started thinking, Bruce, you got to back off. Then my management team said, it'd probably be a good idea.
Sure.
Probably because I don't always know everything, and I would hate to post
Right.
something incorrect. So, yeah.
Right. I find that interesting because I posted yesterday too. When I was just telling you this, I'll tell the audience if you're following along. My personal social media platforms and my podcast social media platforms, and sometimes they are interwoven and they mix, right, and they mesh. But I woke up yesterday, and maybe this will turn into a political episode. Hey, it is what it is, and we currently have freedom of speech, so we're going to utilize every ounce that we currently have until exactly. So I woke up, and as a social media, I would call myself, for the most part, an influencer, not a brand influencer, although I am a brand ambassador for Hunky Tops, and drag is not a crime, by the way. A little plug as part of my contract, but he's an amazing, you know, friend of mine now, and then he's one of my students, Christian of Hunky Tops. And go out there and check it out, check his products out, support gay and Latin American men in this country. But we digress. But I'm glad you brought that up too. Is what kind of impact do you think you're going to have on social media? And that's for everybody out there to take a minute and pause and think, right? Especially after a big national election. And I did think to myself, Bruce, and I said, am I going to speak up and speak out and speak my truth? Or am I going to wallow in self-pity and just go down the rabbit hole and doom scroll the rest of the day?
I think it's important to speak up. I do. It's sort of like being white. If another white person approaches me and wants to have what I call a white moment and they're trying to say something racist about somebody else, I always shut them down. I'm like, we're not having this conversation.
Same here.
It is important to speak up. And that's not on social media per se, but it's to say, no, I'm not going to let this pass. And I think we're going to, unfortunately, we already had dress rehearsal the last time this guy was president. I think we're going to have another 4 years of that. And probably some lost friendships. The last time I lost some close childhood friends, and just yesterday I lost a couple.
Sure.
Even though I hadn't really posted anything, I just, it's this time around, there's no excuse. I'm not going to give permission or say we need to be friends and understand each other's point of view. Not this time.
No. I actually completely agree with you on that, especially coming from a place of privilege. As you said, you're a white male. I'm a white cis male. I happen to be queer, and it's taken 40 years to be comfortable with who I am, to get to the place where I can be on this damn podcast and speak my truth and run a business as a queer business owner. And I'm sure you feel similar. Not that I'm speaking on your behalf. I would assume so per your last comment.
It's incredible, though, what you're doing. I think it's amazing. Yeah.
And I'm just a drop in the bucket. What you're doing is incredible. What members of our community are doing is incredible. What creators are doing. Hollywood is not going to stop because there's a different administration, right? Completely. Creatives are not going to stop writing because there's a specific, administration.
It'll be interesting.
Go ahead.
It'll be interesting to see what happens in Hollywood. They don't always follow the trends, which is great. I've noticed there's a big push for more diversity in films.
Right. Correct.
Which I think is wonderful. I hope that we don't see some sort of a backlash. I will tell you this. We had a good thing going with diversity in the 70s. Maybe some of the shows were a little racist, but we had a lot of shows that featured diverse casts. We cruised into the 80s under Reagan. Suddenly, it was a whole different scene, not a good scene. We weren't seeing it anymore. And then in the 90s, for a while there, it was like, got to have a gay best friend and everything. So as an actor, I was out auditioning. I'll be the gay best friend,
Salute. I just got chills when you said that. Yeah, you're correct. But there wasn't social media or those platforms back there to even discuss that.
No, there wasn't. Sometimes I think it's a blessing we didn't have it because I feel like...
Okay.
Well, I feel like particularly with Twitter X or X, whatever the heck we're calling it now, that's just a big, crazy... it's like that scene in Poltergeist where he opens the bedroom to show the person.
I was just thinking that. Yeah.
All that stuff flying around. It's like that. Half the stuff isn't even true. And I used to go on there because occasionally you could get ahead of the curve on a film project, which I'm always interested in. Or
sure,
I could exchange a note with an actor that because it was a way to be friends with people you might not ever be friends with otherwise.
Sure.
But not anymore. It's just people screaming, and you can say anything. You can say anything on there, and whatever happened to decorum, you know?
It's a mess. I mean, there's a lot of the opposite happening on Facebook. You know, a lot of the opposite and more power on a TikTok or Instagram, where we still have
Yeah.
a freedom of voice, freedom of choice. We can speak up our truth, especially in the community as creatives on those platforms. Twitter X, I had, and I'll say this to everybody out here and you as well, the first one to know and find out. I had a lot of hope for Twitter when it became X. And I thought it was going through this renaissance, and I'm not losing hope 100%. Maybe not the next 4 years, but maybe thereafter. You know what I mean? Hopefully that, or another platform that will be for everybody, will be for the people and by the people. And I actually like labeling myself as a patriot and very American, because despite all the hate, Bruce, and I want to get your opinion on this in regards to having your voice on social media and, having that option right now, I want a platform that is for the people by the people. Not just the gay community, not just the Black community, the Latin community, everybody. And
Yeah.
we still have a chance in still speaking our truth on the social media platforms, except for X. And I completely agree with you on that.
Yeah, and there's a little censorship on Facebook, I would say, and a little bit on Instagram. It doesn't affect me because I never really crossed the line anyway. You
Right.
know what I want to see? I want to see better education in this country about how the governmental process works. I think I'm the last person in the world to have learned civics. I was talking to somebody actually a little bit older than me. Boy, were they uninformed. They didn't even know how Congress worked.
No.
And I'm like, and yet you're going out there and you're voting. And I'm like, you need, and it's exhausting, but if you understood the process of government, you might
Yeah.
understand that some of the stuff these politicians are saying on social media that is vulgar, outright lies. Maybe take a step back and say, no, I have enough knowledge in my head. I know you aren't the qualified one.
Right.
And
Right.
it's sickening to me. I do not know why civics isn't being taught in schools anymore.
Right. But without getting too much into that, that's a completely different podcast and conversation, which we can cover.
Okay.
No. And I'm not trying to censor you either, because I completely agree.
Yeah.
What scares me about that is the misinformation that's easily accessible on social media. And we need to change it, have more reform on the platforms. Teach civics, 100% yes. If, they claim that children are being indoctrinated in this country, I mean, which we all were to a certain degree, right? Then make it worth the collective's while. You know what I mean? Educate on civics. And then when you get to classify yourself as a creator or a politician or a creative politician on social media, then you need to have or follow certain rules of social media in order to reach the masses. I think that there needs to be more control on that, and
Yeah.
so being able to speak your truth. So
Where I was headed with this is I am proud to be an American,
sure,
and yes, of course we had some indoctrination, whatever.
yes,
We had to say the Pledge of Allegiance and all of that. But so what? I mean, for the most part, for somebody like me, particularly if you take the gay part away, I'm
yeah,
a white male, I've got a lot of opportunities. My point
same here.
is, as I've gotten older, I've noted how much more difficult it is for other Americans that don't fall into the right categories. So I'm proud to be an American, but I want to be a change agent. And
Yes,
I certainly can't speak for people of color, different races and ethnicities, but I can at least add a voice to people talking about minorities when it comes to the queer community.
correct,
That was
correct.
kind of a long-winded thing I just said, but you know what I mean.
No, and that was so profound. I mean, same here. I mean, literally, I think during the first, as you said, the dress rehearsal, we don't want to get in trouble. The dress rehearsal years ago, I had a conversation with a potential client, and they were of African American descent, and they were in the South, and they were a business owner. And they literally told me, you are privileged. We need you as a voice. I'm not trying to say that I'm a savior or anything like that, right? I'm just trying to speak my truth. And that was a game changer for me. I said, I lived my entire life as a privileged white male. You said, despite the gay thing, I had a pretty good life. And we've all had trials and tribulations, Bruce, right? But how can we as creators, as producers, actors, podcasters, writers, and there's going to be a lot of unique creativity coming out of these dark times. And quite frankly, I'm looking forward to it in the future to look back and reflect upon.
I still feel optimistic. Right. I feel optimistic. I feel cautiously optimistic.
Right.
About what we can do. And, part of it is just being an educated person. And I consider myself to be one.
Right.
It means that it is incumbent on me, and here I'm sort of going to take back what I said about not being an influencer, but it is incumbent upon me to speak up and to share my own stories. One I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole about. For a long time, life was great. I was out proud. I never had any problems. Then I got beaten up, left for dead because I was gay.
Right.
I was like, oh, I guess that stuff does happen to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's laugh now. It was awful at the time. It was humiliating. It was devastating. It was also financially ruinous because there were a lot of medical bills and things like that.
Sure.
But my point is, we all probably have something. It's just that some of us have less in terms of angst and really discrimination.
Sure. Let's rewind. You said something interesting about the 70s, 80s, and 90s, especially in film.
Yeah.
How do you think things would have been different had we had social media platforms throughout those decades?
I think this is just a guess because we didn't. I think we probably would have moved ahead a little bit more in terms of better acceptance for diversity. That's what I think. While we were showing it in TV and films, people could change the channel and they could just read the newspaper or they could do something else. And I think what we would have seen is probably a lot more progress. And quite frankly, for the gay community, if we hadn't had an awful president, Ronald Reagan, and we hadn't had HIV/AIDS, and it was so bungled.
Sure.
I think the whole progress for marriage equality, a lot of things would have progressed, and I think we would have seen it. To your point, these forms of social media. I like to think that anyway.
Sure. How do you feel? I'm sorry.
I was going to say, did you ever see Hot Tub Timeline? Is that what it's called? Hot Tub Timeline?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't.
There's a really funny scene. They go back in time to the 80s, and this guy's dancing and flirting with this young woman, and he goes, I'll text you later. She goes, I don't know what that is, but it sounds fun. Right.
Like what? We were just getting CDs in the 80s. There was no texting, no.
I know.
I mean, our phone, but just thinking technologically, right? Like what was really around. And I'm a child really of the 90s, I was a teenager and, in the 90s, and that was the birth of the internet, which is interesting. That was the birth of America Online, really being connected. You had chat rooms within the community, which I, kind of saw the tail end of that as I grew up with the internet and having access. But I'm 100% with you. I wish that even to this day that there would be more diversity on social media, that there would, we would be more demure on social media and not scream and yell and shout and curse and try to put everybody else down. Whether we want to admit it or not, especially even as white male, men, we're part of that marginalized community and we need to take our power back, which goes to my point originally, in which this conversation started about, I almost gave up yesterday, as in not wanting to speak up. I said, you know what? I'm a business owner. I'm a creative. I'm a podcaster. People are looking to me for advice, not only with business, but also, in their lives. I can't just sit there and not speak up diplomatically, right? And not saying certain things to censor myself just a little bit to have that power and call it back to myself after a huge election like we just went through. So
yeah, there's always setbacks. I feel like this country always has two steps forward, two steps back. I
Sure.
wish it was. I wish it was better, and I wish more people were cognizant of the fact that we are a capitalistic society, and we probably shouldn't be, but for the most part, we are with
Yeah.
some forms of really cool socialism. The reason why I say that is I wish that people were cognizant of that because they get so angry sometimes, and I'm like, yeah, you kind of do have to have money. You have to have a job. You have to be treated better. And
Sure. Sure.
I, I'm not saying that's right or it's fair, but I think if we all had a better understanding of it, um, maybe we could somehow make the system work for everyone. And that's a really unformed thought, but I know there's something profound in there.
No, just speak. Absolutely. Yeah. Again, but this is a platform in which we can do so. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
The, 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 the moment we got the news, I called my brother who directed the film we have that's coming out soon, and I said, we probably better get it out on distribution soon because there's a bunch of comments in there about how the two dads were together for a long time, and then when marriage became the law of the land, they quickly got married but didn't have a wedding. I said, what if we hold on to it too long and release it? And God forbid, but suddenly marriage is no longer something for same-sex couples. He said, Bruce, it takes place in California. Don't worry. Which is true. We're probably more protected there. But I'm thinking, I would hate to make something that's out of date and have it be a sad thing. So
Sure.
very quickly, my very first film when I made was called Homewrecker. It was based on a stage show I produced in Los Angeles that was a huge hit. So somebody gave us money to make it into a movie.
Sure.
We had to go back in before we released it and dub over some dialogue because we used the word lover and partner because
Oh,
marriage hadn't passed, but marriage equality passed during the distribution process. So we went
uh-huh.
back in and dubbed in the word husband. So it's funny, they'll say husband, it doesn't quite match
Uh-huh.
up.
Uh-huh. Wow. How
Yeah.
was that process like? Of, of,
Huh?
of how was that process of getting it released in the distro while things were changing here in the country?
Well, I'm sad to tell you this, but a lot of stuff really hasn't changed. That movie was, I want to say 2009, and the color correction house that we sent it to, going to pay them. That's their job.
Sure.
Color correction is where they balance the colors because digital, you get a lot of weird popping colors. They called us and said, you have to take the film back. We're not going to do it.
Ooh.
We're like,
Okay.
what? Well, it's a gay film, and two of the characters are kissing. Oh, the horror. I said,
Hmm.
well, you didn't get all the way through the film because they also hopped into bed together. So
Yeah.
I make that now. God, it made me mad because we fell behind schedule because, and of course, it's against the law what they were saying. But at the
Sure.
time, what I'm saying is that stuff is still going on right now today. I don't know if I could share everything that I've run into, but even with casting,
Hmm.
um, we've had actors submitted. They know what the project is, especially this film we just produced. It's so vanilla anyway. They'll do a really great video audition, and then we'll call the manager. Our casting people will call the manager, and the
Hmm.
manager will say, "Oh, no, we've changed our mind. They can't be in this film because there's gay characters." I'm like, really? It's
Wow.
2024. Yeah, so I
Yeah.
mean, there's still a bit of that. Yeah.
That's interesting too. And unfortunately they lost that on the roll. That's how I feel about that.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah. And you've produced and directed and acted in a lot of successful content over the years. Congratulations. And we want to hear that. That's a great uh, intro into the next part is we want to hear about this new film. And I know that you feel like you're under the wire a little bit because of what might be happening, but
Yeah.
regardless, it's a big accomplishment. So tell us more about how that came to fruition.
Okay, thank you. I've produced
Yeah.
3 films completely. I've helped produce a lot of other films, but only 3 in totality. Homewrecker, a movie called Breaking the Rules, which is doing so well on Tubi. It's like amazing, which has
Amazing.
really fun comedians like Rebecca Cochin from the Eating Out series. This new movie is called Fathers of the Bride, not
Hmm.
Father of the Bride. And it's 2 dads. One is the biological father of their daughter, who they've raised. The other, played by me actually, is the non-biological father. And their daughter is finally getting married. She's been dating this guy forever, and she doesn't want to have a wedding. And my character's like, you don't want to have a wedding ceremony? They're like, no, we want to fly to Las Vegas. We're too busy with work. And it doesn't sit very well with me because my character, because we didn't have a wedding ceremony. We just quickly got married when it was legal. So, you know, for people that are watching this that don't understand the challenge, being able to legally marry is the most wonderful thing in terms of not having to do tons of bureaucratic paperwork just to protect your assets. If somebody's
Sure.
sick in the hospital, to make it easy for that person to go see them in the hospital, that kind of thing. So, there's a lot of angst. But the story is played out as a comedy. So my character talks her into having this wedding, and there's a sister-in-law that actually, you think she doesn't like me, you think she's anti-gay, which is an interesting thing. But as it turns out, no, she's just jealous because she doesn't want her brother. They own a business together. She doesn't want her brother spending all his time with me. It's kind of a day of
Uh-huh.
reckoning.
Okay.
It's a really, the actress who plays that role is very good too. It's a really cute story. It's very much like a Hallmark movie. But it's got a wedding and it's got Christmas. So I would say it's probably the most mainstream thing I've ever written. And I really was passionate about this script and the
Sure.
most mainstream thing we've produced, my brother and I. But I felt in a way it needed to be done because it wasn't so specific to the gay community that it alienated other audiences. And I wanted to make a film that had a broader reach. I'd like the people in the Midwest to watch this and say, oh, isn't it cute they've got gay dads? And isn't the daughter sweet, And
Sure.
oh, and it's really fun. It has a big car chase at the end. I was really actually impressed with myself at how well it came together. But my point is, there's still political stuff in there. I mean, these guys raised this daughter and they lived together and they couldn't get married. And when they could get married, but I think the daughter says something. I wrote the script and I can't remember. She says, "Oh, together for 10, married for 5, so that makes 15." And then her fiance says, "And they didn't have a wedding ceremony." And she goes, "No, they were just glad they could legally marry." And
Hmm.
we're done. But it's a
That's it.
very profound point.
It is. It is.
That the sister-in-law has been married and divorced twice, and she's trying to take over the wedding. She goes, "I have a lot more experience with weddings." And my character says, "Yeah, and we couldn't even get married until just a few years ago. Guess we need to catch up." So just a few little things. I'm hoping it will play in some of the areas where maybe they might turn it off because they think it's too in your face,
Hmm.
and at the same time entertain and educate. So we'll see.
But isn't that woven into the fabric of our community a little bit too, Bruce? Is we're here to educate. I think we all are as human beings, but especially as creatives, to just drop a little hints. You're not trying to change the world, but you're trying to change the world, is what I'm trying to say.
Step at a time. My brother always says, and he's a director, and I totally respect his opinion. He said, "Remember when we make a film, even one that's more specifically gay," he said, "we're not trying to amaze our friends and our family. We're trying to entertain strangers." And he's
Yeah,
right, and you
right.
kind of know when your film is successful by how frequently it streams. Homewrecker, the very first film that we produced, it's pretty old. I mean, they use flip phones, they don't text and anything like that because
Right.
technology was changing even when we were making it. But
Sure.
during the pandemic, Amazon Prime contacted us and said, "We'd like to put that film back on. It was so popular, people are asking for it." So they put it back on Prime again, that old film. And that's how you know you've made something that somebody you've never met is, you know, being entertained, maybe educated. So made me
Sure.
feel very good. Yeah.
And you should feel accomplished of that as well. How did you get the word out on social media? Let's rewind to that first film, regarding that first film.
Well, the very first film, they used to have distributors for this stuff. There was a real 2009, I want to say 2004 to 2009, they were making a lot of these lower budget indie films specifically. They called them gay films, but we weren't saying LGBTQ plus yet. And I
Hmm.
actually was in a bunch of them, not ones I produced.
Sure.
So by the time I had the idea to make this one, somebody gave us the money. So nice of them to make this thing. And then a distributor contacted us before we'd even made it. So to get the word out, it was much, much, much easier because that distributor did a lot of the press releases over wire services. They
Okay.
had their own website. There was less putting it out there on traditional social media because it didn't really exist.
It didn't back
Um,
then. No, not as no.
I would say it is much harder. It was the second film we made, Breaking the Rules, was easier because it hadn't turned into this thing where everybody's screaming for attention. We self-distributed that one, which is a really smart thing because you actually make more money.
Sure.
Um, we did press releases. We did film festivals for that one, things like that. This time around, though, it's harder to cut through the clutter, And everybody's
Mhm.
mad about something. Everybody's offended about something. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be. I'm just saying,
Right. They
you
still
have to
are.
sort of do that little dance between it and say, hey, there's this really great film you might want to watch.
Right. Right.
It, truthfully, I'm going to get into so much trouble, but I'll say it anyway. We don't always have support from our own community for our projects,
No.
particularly if it's a producer of films or another indie actor that, someone didn't get cast. And there's not a lot of information sharing. Like, I was looking for a distributor for this film, and we found one, because we don't want to self-distribute this time. But asking around, there's people that won't help you. They won't share information versus anybody contacts me, they'll say, I need to clean up the sound on my movie. I'll say, oh, you should contact these people, mention my name, they will give you a discount, right?
Hmm.
There's no quid pro quo, and it is a genuine heartbreaker. This film, Fathers of the Bride, was selected. I'm bragging, I don't care, I'm going to brag.
No, this is why. Yeah, come on.
To be the centerpiece of this huge exhibit at the Hollywood Museum, a really big deal called Reel to Reel. Celebrities, a red carpet, press. They have the whole cast there. And anyway, they're keeping the exhibit up because it has Christmas elements. They're going to keep it through December.
Sure.
And for the most part, it was great. But I noticed other colleagues weren't as supportive. It was more of a how did you get that kind of thing. And I'm like, I don't know. I probably shouldn't even be saying this. It always breaks my heart, because I'm always so supportive. Somebody has a film, somebody books a role. I'm not like, well, that should have been me. I'm like, that's great. Let me help you promote.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
it's
There's
not
room. There's room for all of us, Bruce. There's room for all of us. We can all win. That's how it should be as humans.
Yeah.
How are you getting the word out about the film now, specifically through your platforms on social media? Like, where are you finding the most traffic?
Instagram, got an Instagram page, which is doing well. And
Okay.
I have a cast that's just really big on promoting. So, I've given them clips and pictures and things like that. So that's great. I've done a bunch of wire releases, formal press releases over wire services, which is still, it cuts right through the clutter. People will pick them up and put them. And then I hired a PR agency for a brief period of time.
Sure.
And they were very helpful. They helped out at the screening. They brought in some press and even some celebrities, which was fun. We had the coach, Lee was there, a few other people like that. So I was excited about that. People that just go to an event and get their photo taken because there was a red carpet.
Sure.
I'm still getting the word out, and to answer your question, because the film isn't streaming anywhere yet.
Right.
So the goal is to get people excited about it, and I hope they enjoy it,
Sure.
It was a lot of work.
Sure. And again, you should be proud of that you're speaking about it, that you're excited about it, you're getting people excited about it, but also because of social media, namely through Instagram. And go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Are you, which we may have spoken about this when we first met on over our first conference, are you directing the staff on what to say on social media? Are you using specific hashtags to categorize your works, or are you just sending clips and pictures and saying, go?
I should be doing that.
Prosper okay.
The only thing I've warned them about is please don't say anything super controversial, because you'll kill the movie, and then I scare them, the actors. I'm like, and it will also affect your career, which is true.
Which is true, of course.
There are some things where it's okay to be very supportive.
Right.
Things you I don't know. I don't know. But here's a good example.
I'm not sure.
People are not really big on spanking children, right? And you shouldn't do it,
Right,
right? I would
right.
never talk about it, and I'm not going to share my opinion on it. But let's say you're an actor who does think children should be spanked. That might get you into trouble. So don't invite it into your social media space.
You made
Yeah.
a great point, is think before you post, because even if you think that it's not permanent, it will be permanent. Internet is permanent, regardless of whether you think, it is or not. Number one. Number two, be a little diplomatic when you post, when you speak. Speak your truth, speak up, speak out, be creative. But think about the rest of your life, especially if you're a professional on social media. That's all I'm going to say on that. Right, Bruce?
You make a valid point, though. It is forever. I did a film for for a production company, and they put it on the BET channel, and I was the mean boss because I'm an old guy and I'm the mean boss. I was actually a replacement, a recast, because they didn't get along with the other actor. So the woman I'm yelling at in it in a couple scenes, she thinks I'm racist because I'm really being a jerk, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then later on, she runs into me, and I'm with my wife who's black, and it was kind of an eye-opener. And so she realizes, oh, he's kind of a creep. He's just a creep because he's a stickler for work, and we all end up being good friends, which I thought was really great. Until I'm on the set, and the director stops me, and he says, I would like you to use the N-word in this one scene.
Oh, okay.
I said, well, it's not in the script. And he said, yeah, but I'd like you to use it. And I said, I don't want to say that word. It's a vulgar word. I don't want to hear it coming up. I've never used that word. I don't want to hear it coming up.
Right. No. That's a big no.
And then I said, do you really want that in your movie? And I said, as one of the few white people in this cast, that's the clip they're going to show over and over and over.
You're going to spin it however they want or what have you. Yeah. Wow.
Well, he was pretty insistent. And I said, but my character isn't a bigot. That's what the story is. And finally, I just said, we'd already shot a lot. I said, I'm not going to say it. I'm like, fire me, recast the role again. And so we just finished it, and I didn't say it. But
Good for you for speaking up as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the woman that I was working with, she goes, thank you. She didn't want to hear it either,
Why should you want to hear it of a person of color? Come on. No.
Yeah. Well, I'm just telling you. Sometimes directors get carried away. They might not have used that take anyway, but I don't want. You gotta manage what you do, and you need to manage, I guess, a little bit based on your own personal beliefs.
Right.
I was playing a bigot, and the story was about being a bigot or being a racist. That would be one thing.
It would make a little more sense, ish.
I probably wouldn't take the part, but yeah, I mean, like I played a rapist. I did a show for CBS just last year, a heterosexual rapist attacking women and beating them up. And initially, I was like, yeah, this is great. It's a change of pace for me. They have a person to coordinate, like an intimacy coordinator and all that.
Sure.
But the more we got into it, I just felt sick to my stomach. And it turned out really well. But I don't think for me I would do another one of those because I guess I'm a wuss when it comes to acting. But to me, it really went against everything. We were reenacting something that really happened, so I guess it's okay. But it went against everything that's secret to me,
Sure, that you stand for.
Beating up women and injuring them. I ended up getting my head blown off, so I mean, there is some justice.
There's some justice, I guess, for a white man or whatever. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, did you turn to social media to talk about these things after you wrapped up filming, or you just kind of like let it?
Okay. It's an interesting point that you make. As an actor, I almost always just talk about being in a film and please watch it and what an experience it was. As a producer, sometimes I'll talk about the challenges, like how long it took to film something. I love to share tidbits. I have one page on Facebook where I will talk about the technicalities of how do you make it look like somebody's driving in a car when they're not really driving and things like that.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't necessarily say a lot of negative stuff. I just don't. I don't know. Movie making is hard anyway. I mean, if we all shared all the stuff that went on a set, people would say, "Why are you doing it?" Because you can have long hours doing that. And then I also talked about digital retouches, which we're not supposed to. We're supposed to all just look really great on camera
and be perfect,
which is true.
Yeah.
They spend hours
Right.
cleaning you up. And I love it. I'll be like,
Right.
can you they're like, yep, let me fix that. Boop, boop,
Yeah.
boop.
Hmm.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I,
Where, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, mm-mm.
Where do you see yourself on social media in the next few years regarding your projects? Are you going to go on different platforms? Are you going to get off certain platforms because of what's going on, or even
I
around
am
the
going
world? Where do you see yourself landing on socials?
I'm going to close out Twitter X entirely. In fact, I'm going to do it today. I don't never tell anybody I'm on it. I don't want to. It's just it's a
Sure,
horrible. I'm going to keep Instagram. I'm going to keep Facebook because I think they still reach a lot of people.
sure,
And one thing I love about Facebook is it reaches an older audience, and sometimes my films, because I'm in them, tend to skew towards the older folks.
hmm
Instagram skews a little bit younger. And I'm waiting for the next big thing. I mean, what did we have before? We had MySpace. We had a Friendster. Remember Friendster?
I yes, or and we had Hot or Not, which even predated Friendster, which was crazy. So those are the grandfathers
Yeah.
of modern
There's also
social.
Threads, right? I'm not on
Threads
Threads,
is
but
still Threads is
I
still
might join
prominent.
Threads.
Yeah,
Maybe like that. How do I get the word out and what I'm going to do? What I want to do, especially now we've had the political climate shift a little bit in the country, I want to both share more information and background about filmmaking. I also produce theater and theater
sure.
and why I write the stories that I do, and maybe some behind the scenes things. And then I'm going to see where the opportunity is as a member of the queer community to talk about how what's going on might be impacting, people like me that are in that category. I
Sure.
think it's important. It's incumbent upon me to do that. So.
Absolutely. To use it as a tool, use it in our favor as well to educate, teach, and continue on. What we need to do
What do they say?
every
Keep
single
on,
day.
keep on.
So we can speak forever, Bruce, and I'm so honored that you dished a little bit about the film and your past and what's going on politically. Thank you so much. But I'm going to give
Oh,
you back a little time and have you tell everybody where we can find the movie, hopefully sooner than later, where we can
sure.
find social media, and then we'll wrap this baby up.
Oh, I so appreciate the opportunity. I really think people are going to like Fathers of the Bride. It's actually a fun, feel good, like Hallmark film, but it has gay characters in it as well as mainstream. So I think it's got a little bit of something for everyone. We are hoping to sign a deal to distribute it, and it would be on the usual suspects like Tubi TV, Amazon Prime, hopefully Peacock.
Good.
I'd be so excited. And then some of the other streaming platforms that I can't remember what they are, but like Roku and things like that.
Right.
If you want to see anything I was in the past, like Breaking the Rules, or some of the TV shows I was on, like Old Dogs and New Tricks, or Where the Bears Are, you can find
Yes.
those on Amazon Prime. And Homewrecker, our first film, just bowed out. It's not on any streaming platforms, but
Wow.
it's about to come back because
Good. That's good
we're going
news.
to sign with a new distributor because there's people just want to watch that movie. It's so stupid and campy. It's in terms of following what I'm in my presence on social media. You can find me on Instagram. I'm Bruce384, and there's a page also called Fathers of the Bride, which is the new film. On
Perfect.
Facebook, you can find me under Bruce Hart. There's a Fathers of the Bride page, and there's another page confusingly called Bruce Hart. My middle initial is L, but for some reason I don't use it. That page, the second page, is all about show business. If you go to that page, you're going to see all the little behind the scenes things that I share, like how do you dub and make it match your mouth and things like that. So
Right.
yeah,
We love it. We love it. And everybody follow Bruce and Fathers of the Bride
I
on all of the
appreciate that.
platforms you just mentioned. Bruce, thank you so much for coming to the Pride and Promotion podcast this evening. Everybody out there, don't lose the faith. Keep speaking your truth. Be a voice for others that are voiceless. And tune in next time for more Pride and Promotion, everybody. Go forth with pride. We'll talk soon. Take care. That's a wrap for today's episode of Pride and Promotion. We hope you're leaving with fresh insights and inspiration on how to harness the power of diversity and innovation in your marketing strategies. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for our next episode, where we've got more exciting topics and expert guests lined up just for you. Until then, I'm Joe Federico. You can find me at www.jfedericomarketing.com, and I want to help you go forth with pride and make your mark in the world of marketing.